What's going on, YouTube? Come back at you with another video. I'm sick right now, to be honest with you. I just had this whole paperwork read through. I went and listened to the audio. It sounded terrible. I got to do this over 48 pages. I need you guys to hit the like for me. This is a lot of work. But basically, this is the new paperwork that I spoke about in the other video connected to the ARAB case. I am going to skip through some of this because it's not very interesting and or relevant to, this whole video. A lot of it is legal talk, things like that. So I'm going to start with this, the introduction. The defendants are members of a violent drug trafficking organization known as the Original Block Hustlers, or OBH. From at least March 2017 until June 2018, the defendants conspired to distribute and did distribute large quantities of narcotics in and around Philadelphia. They imported drugs from California, stored and prepared those drugs for sale in various properties they controlled, and then sold those drugs in both bulk and street level transactions. So we already broke down all the charges in the original superseding indictment video that I did. If you don't know what ARAB and these other people were charged with, you can refer back to that. I will slowly scroll through this if you want to read it, or pause it and you can, get a better understanding. I don't want to read this again. This is a lot of, again, just reading the same thing over and over. This all was covered in the original indictment. So now we're going to get to the summary of the case. Basically, in this paperwork, the feds are laying out exactly how they intend to prosecute this case, or how they intend to present this case to a jury. It says the Federal Bureau of Investigation has been involved in an ongoing investigation of a violent drug organization known as the Original Block Hustlers, being run by defendant Abdul West. From at least March 2017 and until June 2018, defendant West, along with numerous OBH associates, including but not limited to defendants Jamal Blanding, Jamil Hickson, Richard Chase Hoover, Amir Boyer, Daryl Baker, and Hans Gadsden, conspired together to distribute large quantities of cocaine, crack cocaine, methamphetamine, and heroin to customers in and around Philadelphia. Jamal Blanding, Jamil Hickson, and Richard Chase Hoover were primarily responsible for facilitating the importation of narcotics from California. Blanding also distributed narcotics in and around Philadelphia, as did defendants Amir Boyer, Daryl Baker, and Hans Gadsden. To facilitate their drug trafficking, the defendants maintained and or used at least 4 properties in Philadelphia. You see the properties. The defendants also used violence and threats of violence, often delivered through social media, to protect and further their drug trafficking activities. Throughout the conspiracy, the defendants communicated extensively with each other and others through text messages and social media. These text messages and social media posts, many of which will be presented at trial, documented the defendants' illicit activities and firmly established the nature of their relationship as co-conspirators. This is an overview of the FBI investigation into OBH. The Federal Bureau of Investigation has been investigating OBH since at least spring of 2017. The FBI investigation included, among other things, controlled purchases of narcotics, surveillance of properties used to store and distribute drugs, surveillance of OBH's trips to California for the purpose of importing drugs to Philadelphia, the review and analysis of phone and social media records, and interviews of witnesses. The federal investigation started with several controlled purchases of narcotics from co-conspirator Dantes Stewart. During those controlled purchases, Stewart obtained crack cocaine from West, which Stewart then sold to a confidential informant. During one such meeting, Stewart and West met at a property at 3234 North Sydenham, referred to as the mansion by the defendants. Subsequently, the FBI installed a pole camera outside the mansion in August 2017, and over the next several weeks, the FBI observed the defendant's routine use of the mansion. On September 11, 2017, the Philadelphia Police Department, acting independently of the FBI, executed a search warrant at the mansion. This search was part of an investigation into the shooting of a man named Sherman Williams, which occurred at 2762 North 22nd. A witness to the shooting observed an individual to be the shooter fleeing from the scene in a white Jeep Cherokee with PA registration number. The police determined that the white Jeep Cherokee was registered to Abdul West at 3234 North Sydenham Street, which is the address of the mansion, and at approximately 6:46 p.m., Officer Charles Rillera and Ralph Nelson, who were at the scene of the shooting, traveled to the 3200 block of Sydenham Street to investigate. There they observed the white Jeep Cherokee, parked near the mansion. The officers also observed a group of males, including many of the defendants charged in the instant case, standing outside the mansion, and the group immediately dispersed as officers began to look for weapons and other evidence in the vicinity of the property. Officers located a set of keys belonging to the white Jeep on the curb outside the mansion. The witness was brought from the scene of the shooting to the 3200 block of Sydenham. She positively identified the white Jeep as the same vehicle that the witness had seen fleeing the scene of the shooting. At approximately 6:55 p.m., defendant Dennis Harmon was seen leaving the mansion, and he was questioned by responding officers. Among other things, Harmon stated that he lived at the residence alone and that no one else lived there. Harmon further stated he was a squatter and had been staying at the residence for approximately 3 months. Harmon was questioned as to who owned the white Jeep Cherokee parked outside the residence, and Harmon stated he did not know. When officers informed him that the vehicle was registered to the address at which he claimed to be squatting, Harmon restated that he was the only one that lived at the residence. A search warrant was obtained for the mansion, and numerous items related to drug trafficking were seized, including but not limited to 62 grams of crack cocaine, 229 grams of heroin, 48 grams of meth. The officers also located and seized 8,101 in U.S. currency. In addition to the white Jeep seen leaving the scene of the shooting and later found outside the mansion, a Chevy Impala was also parked outside the property. Although this Impala was also registered to West, the poll camera showed co-conspirator Daryl Baker using the Impala leading up to and on September 11th, 2017. In fact, the poll camera footage from September 11th, 2017, Baker can be seen getting into the Impala while carrying a small black bag. Hang on, I'm about to take a drink of water real quick. When he got out of the Impala, he did not have the bag. Following the search of the mansion on September 11th, the Impala was also searched pursuant to a state search warrant. This vehicle was searched again approximately a year later pursuant to a federal warrant, and a black bag containing cocaine and crack cocaine was found hidden in a secret compartment. Agents later obtained text messages and social media posts, which will be presented at trial, confirming the defendants used the mansion as a quote-unquote trap house. For example, shortly after police executed the search warrant on September 11th, several of the defendants discussed via group text that the mansion had been searched by police. Additionally, in one social media post, West posted photograph of himself outside the mansion and included in the comment field an express reference to his trap house. During the course of the investigation, the FBI determined the defendant Richard Chase Hoover, an OBH associate, maintained a commercial driver's license and that he was associated with an organization called Team Transport LLC in Las Vegas. Agents also learned that a red Volvo truck tractor was registered to team transportation. Agents then obtained a pen register trap and trace for Hoover's phone, and on November 2nd, 2017, the pen register indicated that Hoover was traveling from Philadelphia to Los Angeles. Upon Hoover's return on November 20th, 2017, agents established surveillance and followed Hoover to an apartment located at 1 Brown Street in Philadelphia. Agents observed Hoover enter 1 Brown Street carrying a black backpack and then observed him leave minutes later without the backpack. Agents later learned the defendant, Jamil Hickson, lived at 1 Brown Street, and a subsequent review of Hickson's phone record showed contacts between Hickson, West, and Hoover. Agents also learned that Hickson and Blanding were in Los Angeles at the same time as Hoover. Over the next several months, agents tracked Hoover, Hickson, and Blanding as the 3 men traveled to Los Angeles and then back to Philadelphia. So I'm going to skip all this. This is just breaking down trip by trip them allegedly going to Los Angeles from Philadelphia and then coming back to Philadelphia with drugs. So basically, in the first indictment paperwork that I had did, you can actually go back if you want to hear all about these trips. You can do so in that paperwork. I'm going to keep going until we get to the other good part. Okay, it should be coming up. Hang on. Okay. This is called Statutes, Charge, and Elements of Offenses. This is just basically breaking down what they need to prove, the federal government needs to prove in order to get convictions on these charges. Just talking about these drug charges and per count, basically what they need to do. You can just pause it if you want and read it. This is talking about possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, what they need to prove in order to get convictions. So there's a lot of paperwork in this. You can read through the legal issues if you want. Conspiracy is just breaking down conspiracy and, again, basically what they need to prove in order to get convictions. Just referencing other cases, basically. Association with co-conspirators. Okay, we're going to keep going. Just bear with me. We'll come into some good stuff shortly. Just a lot of stuff to get through because there's so much paperwork in this. Possession, talking about possession, how they prove possession. This is basically the case, the state's or the Fed's whole case. There's drug weight, reasonably foreseeable as to each defendant. Talking about witnesses, and there's actually a ton of witnesses in this case, which I will show you. We're just going to keep scrolling through all this. So I'll read some of these witnesses. The government also intends to call FBI Special Agent William Shute, who is a member of the FBI Cellular Analysis Survey Team, or CAST, to testify as an expert in the area of cellular telephone record and historical cell site analysis. So he's going to testify as to, where these people were making these calls from, who was making calls, things like that. There's lots of social media records he's going to be testifying to, phone records. We'll just keep going. This is interesting right here. Cooperators, plea agreements. There are certain witnesses in custody who may testify during this trial. Some of the witnesses have pled guilty and have plea agreements with the government. The government has provided and will provide discovery related to these witnesses, and the government will provide plea documents after the court unseals those materials. Evidence of a witness's plea agreement is permissible to allow the jury to assess the witness's credibility, to eliminate any concern that the defendant has been singled out for prosecution, and to explain how the witness possessed detailed firsthand knowledge regarding the events about which he testifies. So this is basically talking about people in the case who are snitching and cut deals and are working with the government. We'll read this little threats to witnesses, what it says. It says, threats to a witness are also admissible as evidence of conscience of guilt. Evidence of threats against witnesses is routinely admitted against criminal defendants to show consciousness of guilt. Business and public records. So they're going to bring a lot of public records and things like that into this. Leases, DMV records of vehicles, things like that. I'm going to skip all this because it's really just legal talk. Nothing super interesting. This is interesting with the cell phones. In this case, the government searched approximately 61 cellular telephones associated with the defendants. In doing so, the investigating agents created forensic reports which detail the contents of those cellular telephones. Most of the phones searched, and for all of the phones, the contents of which the government will seek to admit into evidence, Special Agent Simpson with the FBI created the forensic reports. The government will therefore introduce these records through the testimony of Special Agent Simpson. It says, alternatively, to save time during trial presentation, the parties could stipulate to the admissibility of these forensic reports. If such a stipulation were entered into, the government could introduce the specific information which the government submits is relevant through summary exhibits. This would negate the need to introduce into evidence full forensic reports because, as discussed above, information contained on summary exhibits needs only to be admissible, not actually admitted into evidence. So, Exhibit J is recordings, prison calls, rap videos, transcripts of recordings of controlled buys, prison calls, and rap videos, which the government intends to introduce at trial, have been provided to defense counsel. The government also previously filed a Starks motion regarding transcripts of controlled buys discussed above and prison calls of defendant Daryl Baker. On October 16, 2019, the court ordered defense counsel to meet and confer with the government no later than October 29th, 2019, and to bring any unresolved issues related to the transcripts to the court's attention. Okay, keep going. Oh, let's see. A DA. Okay, let's keep going with this. No good. Procedural issues. This is all nothing that's really super interesting. Okay, so it says the estimated time of trial, the government anticipates that its case in chief should take approximately 8 to 10 days, 8 to 10 trial days after the jury is selected. This estimate depends on whether the parties are able to reach stipulations that will eliminate the need to call certain witnesses. Okay. You know what? I think I actually passed one thing up. I'm gonna go back there in a minute, but here's a list of all the law enforcement witnesses that are going to be testifying. You see, there's like quite a bit of them. FBI, police, Philly police, 20 of those, 26 of those witnesses, civilian witnesses. There's the civilian witnesses, business record witnesses. So lots of people set to testify, expert witnesses, drug analysis, forensic chemists. So there's a lot of people in this whole indictment that are going to testify. Let me go back and pull up the part that I missed. Okay, so you may have seen my other video I did on this. If you didn't, I actually, when I was scrolling through, apparently I went a little bit too far. I forgot to include this. This is definitely key in this. It's very interesting. So this is events not specifically alleged in this conspiracy. So what they're saying is that these are things that happened outside of this whole drug trafficking conspiracy. So the feds are alleging, for example, on October 14th, 2017, Robbie Johnson was murdered at the behest of Abdul West and in coordination with defendant Daryl Baker and possibly other members of OBH. This murder is not specifically alleged in the indictment, but it is specifically alleged that OBH used violence and threats of violence to facilitate their drug trafficking. Defense counsel has filed a motion to preclude reference to this murder, and the government responded. The court stated during an October 15th pretrial conference that it will address this issue after voir dire. Should the court permit evidence related to the murder of Robbie Johnson, the government will present testimony as well as phone records and social media records to prove that Abdul West ordered the murder of Robbie Johnson and the other defendants played a role. So basically, this is everything. Again, I skipped over a lot of it because it's just legal talk, nothing too exciting. The good stuff, I pretty much covered all. This is going to be a very interesting case as it proceeds. I'm kind of wondering what's going on right now, to be honest with you. The trial was supposed to start yesterday, but for reasons that have not been released, there was no trial. It did not start. So, not exactly sure what's going on. Definitely interested. I will pay full attention to everything connected to this case. It's very interesting. Hopefully for ARAB's sake and the rest of these people involved, that, they can prove somehow their innocence. This case is looking real ugly. And apparently there's even snitches in this case who are now working with the government probably to try to get more lenient sentences. Crazy situation. Make sure you guys hit the like for me. Let me know what you think in the comments. Leave some feedback. Ring the notification bell if you're subscribed. I appreciate you. Peace.